In the misty village of St. Agnes, a widow is found strangled in a locked chapel, her cherished ebony veil torn beside her, a cryptic note hidden within whispering, "Forgive me." R. Hercule Poirot, with his razor-sharp mind, unravels a web of secrets. A desperate son, a guarded priest, a rejected suitor, each hiding motives of greed, duty, and pride. As whispers of lavender and a missing key deepen the mystery, Poirot must pierce the shadows of a village bound by love and betrayal to reveal a killer who thought their crime was perfect. Will the truth unlock the chapel's secrets or remain veiled forever? Chapter 1. The Locked Chapel. The autumn mist clung to the cobblestones of St. Agnes, a village so quaint it seemed to have stepped out of a bygone era, its thatched roofs and winding lanes undisturbed by the clamor of modernity. In the heart of the village, the Black Swan Inn offered a haven of warmth, its fire crackling merrily as Hercule Poirot sat in a high-backed chair, savoring a steaming cup of tisane. His holiday, a rare indulgence, had been chosen for its promise of tranquility, a chance for the little gray cells to rest. But fate, as Poirot well knew, had a way of disrupting even the best-laid plans. The inn's door swung open with a gust of chilly air, and Inspector Harold Grayson, a sturdy man with a face like weathered oak, strode in, his boots leaving damp prints on the polished floor. His eyes, usually steady, betrayed a flicker of unease as they found Poirot. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice low but urgent, "I apologize for disturbing you, but we've a dire situation. Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore has been found dead in the chapel, murdered, it seems, in a locked room." Poirot's mustache quivered, a subtle sign of the spark igniting within his mind. He set down his tisane with deliberate care, his green eyes narrowing. "Murder, you say? In a locked chapel? This is most intriguing, Inspector. Pray, tell me more." Grayson, wiping his brow with a handkerchief, recounted the grim discovery. Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, a widow of 50 known for her piety, had been found that morning by the chapel caretaker, Mr. Harrow, lying near the altar of St. Agnes's ancient chapel. Her throat bore the cruel marks of strangulation, and beside her lay her ebony veil, a cherished heirloom, torn as if in a struggle. The chapel door, heavy oak reinforced with iron, had been locked from the inside, with the only key found in Eleanor's pocket. No windows offered entry, and the stone walls, centuries old, stood impregnable. Poirot rose, adjusting his impeccable coat. "A locked room, a torn veil, a woman dead, c'est formidable. I will see this chapel, Inspector. The little gray cells, they demand it." The walk to the chapel was short, the village hushed under the weight of the tragedy. St. Agnes's chapel stood alone at the edge of a yew-lined path, its weathered stones cloaked in ivy, its spire piercing the mist. The door, as Grayson had described, was a formidable barrier, its lock simple but unyielding. Inside, the air was cool and heavy with the scent of wax and old wood. Eleanor Whitmore lay near the altar, her face serene despite the violence that had ended her life. Her gray hair was neatly pinned, her dress modest but elegant, and the torn veil, its black lace intricate with a monogrammed EW, lay crumpled like a fallen leaf. Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers tracing the air above the veil, careful not to disturb it. "This veil," he murmured, "it is not merely a garment. It tells a story, does it not?" He examined the body, noting the livid marks on her throat, too broad for a cord, too precise for a scarf. Strangled, yes, but with what? And why this veil torn so violently? Grayson, shifting uncomfortably, gestured to the lock. The caretaker swears he found the door locked at dawn. Eleanor came here every evening to pray, always locking herself in. No one else was seen entering, and the key was in her pocket. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he inspected the lock, his magnifying glass catching faint scratches near the keyhole, barely visible to the untrained eye. Scratches, Inspector. Small, but significant. Someone has been curious, perhaps. He stood, brushing his knees. This locked room, it is not so impenetrable as it seems. A puzzle, yes, but one that Hercule Poirot will unravel. Outside, the village stirred with whispers, the tragedy already weaving itself into St. Agnes's lore. Poirot's gaze swept the path, noting the muddy footprints leading to the chapel door. Too many for a single night's vigil. "We must speak to those who knew Madame Whitmore," he said. "Her son, her priest, her suitor. These are the threads we pull first. Motive, opportunity, and method. They hide among them." Grayson nodded, though his expression betrayed doubt. "It's impossible, Monsieur Poirot. A locked chapel, no other key. How could anyone have done this?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic, his voice soft but firm. "Impossible, you say?" "No, no, Inspector. The impossible is merely a challenge to the little gray cells. We begin now, and we shall see what secrets this chapel holds." Chapter 2. The Three Suspects. The mist had thickened over St. Agnes by the time Hercule Poirot and Inspector Grayson returned to the Black Swan Inn, the village's heart of warmth and gossip. The inn's low-beamed ceiling and crackling hearth offered a stark contrast to the chill of the chapel, but Poirot's mind remained fixed on the puzzle of Eleanor Whitmore's death. A locked room, a torn veil, and a woman strangled. These were not mere facts, but threads in a tapestry of human passion and deceit. As he settled into a cushioned chair, his tisane steaming before him, Poirot's green eyes gleamed with purpose. "Inspector," he said, his voice precise as a metronome, "we must now meet those who circled Madame Whitmore's life. The son, the priest, the suitor. Each holds a piece of this mystery." Inspector Grayson, his broad shoulders hunched from the morning's grim work, nodded. "I've summoned them, Monsieur Poirot. They're shaken, but they'll talk. Edward Whitmore, her son, is an artist, lives in a cottage on the edge of the village. Father Benedict, the priest, tends the chapel, and knew Eleanor well. Then there's Sir Reginald Crane, a baronet with a manor up the hill, who's been after her hand for years. All three were seen near the chapel last night, though none admit to entering." Poirot's mustache twitched, a subtle signal of his mind at work. "Seen, you say? By whom? And what is this near? A precise location, or the vague convenience of gossip? We must be exact, Inspector. Alibis are like mirrors. They reflect what one wishes to see, but they may distort the truth." Grayson flushed slightly, unused to such scrutiny. The caretaker, Mr. Harrow, saw Edward passing the chapel path at dusk. A milkmaid claims Father Benedict was lingering by the yew trees after locking the door. And Sir Reginald, well, the gardener's boy saw him by the river, not far from the chapel, around the time Eleanor went in to pray. "Bon?" Poirot said, sipping his tisane. "3 men, 3 sightings, 3 alibis. Yet one of them, perhaps, is not what he seems. Let us meet them, and let the little gray cells observe." The inn's parlor, with its oak-paneled walls and scent of polished wood, became their impromptu interview chamber. Grayson had arranged for the suspects to arrive separately, and Poirot, ever meticulous, arranged his notebook and pencil with the precision of a surgeon. The first to enter was Edward Whitmore, a man of 30, whose lean frame and tousled dark hair gave him the air of a poet haunted by his own verses. His eyes, red-rimmed and shadowed, suggested grief, but his paint-stained fingers fidgeted, betraying a deeper unrest. He wore a threadbare coat, its cuffs frayed, and his boots carried the mud of the chapel path. "Monsieur Whitmore," Poirot began, his tone courteous but probing, "my condolences for your loss. Your mother, she was dear to you, yes?" Edward's gaze flickered to the floor, then back to Poirot. "She was everything," he said, his voice raw. "Mother was. She held us together after Father died. She wore that veil every day, you know, like a piece of him she couldn't let go." His hands clenched, the knuckles whitening. "I can't believe she's gone." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "And where were you last evening, when your mother entered the chapel for her prayers?" "In my studio," Edward replied quickly, almost too quickly. "I was painting. I often work late. It's when the light feels right." He gestured vaguely, as if the act of painting could ward off suspicion. "Alone?" Poirot asked, his voice soft but insistent. Edward hesitated, his fingers twisting a loose thread on his sleeve. "Yes, alone. The village doesn't care for my work. They call it morbid." A bitter smile crossed his lips. "Mother didn't understand it either, but she supported me." Poirot noted the tremor in Edward's voice, the way his eyes avoided Grayson's. Grief, yes, but was there guilt beneath it? "This veil," Poirot said, changing tack. "It was important to her. Why, do you think? Was it torn?" Edward's face tightened. "I don't know. She cherished it. Father gave it to her before they married. She said it was her shield, her way of keeping him close. Whoever tore it, they wanted to hurt her, not just kill her." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "Merci, Monsieur Whitmore. We will speak again." As Edward left, his shoulders slumped, Poirot jotted a note. Nervous but sincere. The son mourns, yet something is concealed. Next came Father Benedict, a man in his early 40s, his black cassock immaculate despite the morning's turmoil. His face was pale, with deep-set eyes that seemed to carry the weight of countless confessions. He moved with a quiet grace, his hands clasped before him, but Poirot noticed a faint tremor in his fingers as he sat. The priest's voice, when he spoke, was steady but soft, as if accustomed to soothing troubled souls. "Father Benedict," Poirot began, "you knew Madame Whitmore well. She was devout, yes?" "Very," the priest replied, his gaze meeting Poirot's without flinching. "Eleanor came to the chapel every evening, always at dusk, to pray. She was a woman of deep faith, though lately she seemed troubled." "Troubled?" Poirot's eyebrows rose slightly. "In what way, mon père?" Father Benedict hesitated, his fingers tightening around each other. She spoke of burdens, of decisions weighing on her. She would not say more, even to me. I urged her to unburden her heart, but she said only that she needed time. His voice softened. "I locked the chapel door myself last night. After she entered, I thought she was safe." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "You locked it, and yet she was found dead. Tell me, Father, who else has access to this chapel?" "No one," Father Benedict said firmly. "There are only 3 keys. One with Eleanor, one with me, and a third that was lost years ago. The caretaker, Mr. Harrow, can confirm this." "And where were you after locking the door?" Poirot asked, his tone deceptively mild. "Preparing my sermon in the rectory," the priest answered. "I was there until late, alone, as is my custom." His eyes flickered just for a moment, and Poirot caught it, a shadow of unease. "Merci, Father," Poirot said, dismissing him with a nod. As the priest left, Poirot wrote, "Calm, but guarded. A secret shared with Eleanor, perhaps? The rectory is close, too close to the chapel." The final suspect, Sir Reginald Crane, entered with the confidence of a man accustomed to command. A baronet in his late 50s, he was tall, broad-shouldered, and impeccably dressed in a tailored tweed suit, his silver hair swept back like a lion's mane. His smile was charming, but his gray eyes held a hardness that Poirot noted immediately. He took the offered chair with an air of ownership, crossing one leg over the other, as if the parlor were his own drawing room. "Sir Reginald," Poirot began, "you were, I understand, an admirer of Madame Whitmore." The baronet chuckled, a sound that carried more bravado than mirth. "Admirer? I suppose you could say that. Eleanor was a remarkable woman, beautiful, strong-willed. I offered her my hand more than once, but she was loyal to her late husband's memory." His tone held a trace of bitterness, quickly masked by another smile. "I respected her for it, of course." "And last evening?" Poirot asked, his voice smooth as silk. "Where were you when Madame Whitmore met her end?" "Taking a walk by the river," Sir Reginald replied without hesitation. "I often do," clears the head. "I was nowhere near the chapel." Poirot tilted his head, his eyes never leaving Sir Reginald's. "Yet you were seen, monsieur, not far from the chapel path. The river, it is close, is it not?" Sir Reginald's smile tightened. "The village is small, Monsieur Poirot. One can't walk anywhere without being near something. I assure you, I had no reason to harm Eleanor. I admired her, nothing more." "Admiration," Poirot said softly, "can turn to resentment when it is not returned. No?" He paused, watching Sir Reginald's jaw clench ever so slightly. "Merci, Sir Reginald. We will speak again." As the baronet strode out, Poirot added to his notes. "Proud, perhaps too proud. Rejection wounds deeply. The river walk, too convenient?" Grayson, who had been silent throughout, leaned forward. "What do you make of them, Monsieur Poirot? They all seem shaken, but none confess to anything." Poirot closed his notebook with a snap. "They are shaken, yes, but each hides something. The son, he is grieved, yet his hands betray nervousness, perhaps financial strain. The priest, so calm, yet his eyes guard a secret, something Eleanor knew, perhaps. And the baronet, his pride is a mask, but for what? Anger? Shame? We must dig deeper, Inspector. The alibis, they are fragile, like glass. We will test them." Grayson frowned. "But the locked chapel, how could any of them have entered? The key was in her pocket, and Father Benedict swears he locked the door." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Swears, yes, but truth is not always in words. The scratches on the lock, they suggest possibilities. A duplicate key, perhaps, or a clever trick. We must examine the chapel again, and we must learn more of Eleanor Whitmore's life, her heart, her fears, her enemies. These will lead us to her killer." He rose, adjusting his coat with meticulous care. "Come, Inspector. Let us walk the village, listen to its whispers. The people of St. Agnes, they see more than they say. And Hercule Poirot, he listens." The two men stepped into the mist, the village quiet, but alive with unseen eyes. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the fragments, Edward's nervous hands, Father Benedict's guarded eyes, Sir Reginald's brittle pride. Each was a thread, but the pattern remained elusive. As they passed the chapel, its spire looming through the fog, Poirot paused, his gaze lingering on the heavy oak door. "The answer lies there," he murmured, "in the silence of that locked room. But first, we must unravel the lives that led to it." The investigation had begun, and Poirot knew that the truth, like the mist, would clear only with patience and precision. Chapter 3. The Veil's Secret. The morning sun pierced the mist over St. Agnes, casting a pale glow on the ancient stones of the chapel as Hercule Poirot and Inspector Grayson approached once more. The village stirred with the cautious rhythm of a community touched by tragedy, its inhabitants whispering behind curtains and over garden walls. Poirot's polished shoes clicked softly on the cobblestone path, his mind as sharp as the air that nipped at his neatly gloved hands. The locked chapel, with its enigma of a strangled widow and a torn veil, beckoned like a puzzle half solved. "Inspector," he said, his voice crisp, "we return to the scene, for it is here that the truth hides, in the details overlooked." Grayson, his face etched with the strain of a sleepless night, nodded. "I've had the chapel secured, Monsieur Poirot. No one's touched a thing since yesterday. But I confess, I'm still baffled by that lock. How could anyone get in or out?" Poirot's green eyes gleamed with a quiet intensity. "Patience, mon ami. The lock, it is not the whole story. The veil, the scratches, the key in her pocket. These are the notes of a melody we must learn to play." He paused at the chapel's oak door, its iron hinges rusted but unyielding, and gestured for Grayson to unlock it. The inspector produced Father Benedict's key, and with a heavy creak, the door swung inward, revealing the dim, hallowed space within. The chapel's interior was as Poirot had last seen it, cold, solemn, with shafts of light filtering through stained glass to paint fleeting colors on the stone floor. Eleanor Whitmore's body had been removed, but the chalk outline near the altar marked her final resting place with grim precision. The torn ebony veil, now in Grayson's evidence bag, had been left on a pew for Poirot's further inspection. He approached it with the reverence of an archaeologist uncovering a relic, his magnifying glass poised like a wand. "Regardez," Poirot murmured, lifting the veil with gloved fingers. The lace, delicate as a spider's web, bore the monogram E.W. in silver thread, its edges frayed where it had been violently torn. He inhaled subtly, catching a faint trace of lavender, a scent that clung to the fabric like a memory. "This veil, it is more than a widow's mourning. It is personal, intimate. Why tear it? To destroy a symbol? To conceal something within?" Grayson frowned, his practical mind grappling with Poirot's musings. It could have been an accident in the struggle. The killer grabbed her, the veil caught, and it tore. Poirot shook his head, his mustache curving slightly. "No, Inspector. An accident is careless, but this tear, it is deliberate, precise. See here, the rip follows the weave, not jagged but almost surgical. The killer wanted it torn, or needed something from it." He turned the veil over, his fingers probing the folds until they paused at a hidden seam, so fine it was nearly invisible. With a delicate touch, he parted the stitching, revealing a tiny pocket within the lace. Inside lay a folded scrap of paper, no larger than a postage stamp, its ink faded but legible. "Forgive me. R." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. "Mon Dieu, a secret within a secret. This note, it is addressed to R. But who? And for what does she beg forgiveness?" He handed the note to Grayson, who stared at it as if it might speak. "R could be Reginald, Sir Reginald Crane," Grayson suggested. "He was her suitor, after all." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his tone cautious. But we must not leap, Inspector. Or could be another, or even a symbol, a place, a regret. We must discover more. He pocketed the veil, with Grayson's permission, and turned his attention to the altar, where Eleanor had spent her final moments. The wax from a single candle had dripped onto the stone, hardened into a pale pool. Poirot knelt, his magnifying glass sweeping the floor, noting scuff marks in the dust, too many for one person's footsteps. "Someone else was here," he said softly. "The marks, they overlap, as if two danced a deadly waltz." Grayson scratched his head. "But the door was locked, and the key was with her. You mentioned scratches yesterday. Do you think someone had another key?" Poirot stood, brushing his trousers with meticulous care. "The scratches, they suggest tampering, yes, but also possibility. A duplicate key, a lock picked, or perhaps a trick we have not yet seen. I must know more of this chapel's history, its keys, its secrets." He turned to Grayson. "Summon the caretaker, Mr. Harrow. He will know the bones of this place." Mr. Harrow, a stooped man with a face like crumpled parchment, arrived promptly, his hands trembling slightly as he clutched a worn cap. His eyes darted to the altar, then away, as if the chalk outline burned his vision. "I've tended this chapel 40 years, sir," he said to Poirot. "Never seen such a thing. Mrs. Whitmore, she was a saint, always here praying." Poirot's smile was gentle but probing. "Monsieur Harrow, tell me of the keys. Inspector Grayson says there are 3. 1 with Madame Whitmore, 1 with Father Benedict. The third question?" Harrow's fingers tightened on his cap. "Lost, sir, nigh on 10 years ago. It was kept in the rectory, but it vanished after a village fete. We searched, but it never turned up. Some say it was stolen, others that it was misplaced. Father Benedict had the lock checked after, said it was still secure." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Stolen or taken with purpose? And this lock, it is old, yes? Could a duplicate be made?" Harrow hesitated, his weathered face creasing further. "It's a simple lock, sir, but sturdy. A locksmith could copy the key, I suppose, if they had the original to work from. But who'd do such a thing?" "Merci, Monsieur Harrow," Poirot said, dismissing him with a nod. As the caretaker shuffled out, Poirot turned to Grayson. "A missing key, a torn veil, a hidden note, these are not coincidences. Someone planned this, someone who knew Eleanor's habits, her devotion to this place." Grayson rubbed his chin. "But who? Edward's her son. He'd know her routine. Father Benedict locks the chapel nightly. And Sir Reginald, he's got the money to have a key made if he wanted." Poirot paced slowly before the altar, his hands clasped behind his back. "All true, Inspector, but we must look deeper. The veil's note? Forgive me, It suggests a personal connection, a guilt. We must learn more of Eleanor's life, her relationships. The lavender scent, it is unusual, non? Perhaps it leads us to another clue." He suggested a visit to the village seamstress, Mrs. Potts, who had known Eleanor and might shed light on the veil's significance. They found her in a tidy shop filled with bolts of fabric and the hum of a treadle sewing machine. Mrs. Potts, a plump woman with keen blue eyes, welcomed them with a mixture of curiosity and sorrow. "Poor Eleanor," she said, setting aside her needle. "She was a dear soul, always so proper, always in that veil." Poirot produced the veil, now carefully folded, and laid it on her counter. "Madame Potts, this veil, it is special, yes? Tell me its story." Mrs. Potts touched the lace with reverence, her fingers tracing the monogram. "Oh, it's special. I made it myself, years ago, for Eleanor and her sister, Margaret. 2 veils, identical, for their weddings. Eleanor's husband gave hers to her, and Margaret's, well, she passed young, and her veil was lost after her death. Eleanor wore hers daily after her husband died, like a vow to him. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Lost, you say? Like the chapel key? And this lavender scent, did Eleanor use such a perfume? Mrs. Potts shook her head. Not that I knew. She wasn't one for perfumes, said they gave her headaches. That veil, it was always clean, pressed, but I never noticed lavender. Poirot thanked her, his mind cataloguing the new information. A duplicate veil, a missing key, a scent that did not belong. The threads were multiplying. Back at the inn, he sat with Grayson, his notebook open. The veil's twin, it is lost, like the key. And this lavender, it is an intruder, a clue to someone else's presence. We must search the suspects' homes, Inspector. Edward's studio, Father Benedict's rectory, Sir Reginald's manor. Something waits to be found. Grayson hesitated. We'll need warrants for Sir Reginald, and Father Benedict won't like his rectory searched. Poirot's smile was serene but resolute. Then obtain them, mon ami. The little gray cells, they sense the truth is near, but it hides behind locked doors of another kind. As they parted, Poirot lingered by the inn's window, watching the village settle into dusk. The chapel's spire stood sentinel in the distance, its silence a challenge. The note, the veil, the scratches, all pointed to a killer who knew Eleanor intimately, who planned with care. But why the veil? Why the note? And who was R? Poirot's fingers tapped his mustache, his mind a whirl of possibilities. The truth was there, in the shadows of St. Agnes, waiting for Hercule Poirot to bring it to light. Chapter 4. The Sun's Burden. The sun hung low over St. Agnes, casting long shadows across the village's winding lanes, as Hercule Poirot and Inspector Grayson made their way to Edward Whitmore's cottage. The air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of autumn leaves, but Poirot's mind was far from the pastoral beauty. The puzzle of Eleanor Whitmore's murder grew ever more intricate. A locked chapel, a torn veil with its hidden note, the faint whiff of lavender, and now the tantalizing possibility of a duplicate key. Each clue was a brushstroke on a canvas that remained maddeningly incomplete. "Inspector," Poirot said, his voice measured. "The son, Edward, he mourns, yes, but his hands, they betray a restlessness. We must see what his home reveals of his heart." Grayson, trudging beside him, adjusted his hat against the evening breeze. "Edward's a queer sort, always painting those dark pictures. The villagers say he's got his mother's stubbornness, but none of her grace. If he's hiding something, that cottage of his is the place to look." The cottage stood at the village's edge, a squat stone building, half swallowed by ivy, its windows dim with the flicker of lamplight. The garden was overgrown, tangled with weeds, as if Edward's attention lay elsewhere. Poirot noted the muddy path leading to the door, its surface churned with footprints that matched the boots Edward had worn at the inn. "He walks much," Poirot murmured, "and recently, it seems." Edward opened the door before Grayson could knock, his face pale and his eyes wary. "Monsieur Poirot, Inspector," he said, his voice tight. "I expected you'd come. What do you want?" Poirot's smile was disarming, his tone gentle. "Monsieur Whitmore, we wish only to understand your mother's life, and thus her death. May we see your studio? Your art, it may speak of her in ways words cannot." Edward hesitated, his paint-stained fingers twitching, then stepped aside. "It's not much, but come in." The cottage's interior was as chaotic as its garden, cluttered with canvases, jars of pigment, and the sharp scent of turpentine. The studio, a small room at the back, was dominated by an easel bearing a half-finished painting. A woman in an ebony veil, her face contorted in anguish, surrounded by swirling shadows. Poirot's eyes lingered on it, his expression unreadable. "Your mother?" he asked, gesturing to the canvas. Edward nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, I started it months ago, when she began changing. She was haunted, Monsieur Poirot, by father's death. She blamed me for not saving him." His voice broke, and he turned away, busying himself with a rag to wipe his hands. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Blamed you? Tell me of this, Monsieur Whitmore." Edward's shoulders slumped, as if the weight of memory pressed upon him. "Father died in a fire, 10 years ago, at our old house. I was there, but I couldn't get to him in time. Mother never forgave me, though she never said it outright. She'd look at me, and I'd see it in her eyes. Disappointment." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. She clung to that veil, to his memory, and refused to move on. It was like living with a ghost. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing the pain in Edward's words. "And this refusal, it caused strain? Financial, perhaps? I understand your mother resisted selling the family estate." Edward's eyes flashed, a mix of anger and guilt. "Yes, she refused. The estate's worth a fortune, enough to clear our debts, to let me paint without scraping by. I begged her to sell, but she wouldn't hear of it. Said it was father's legacy, that I had no right to ask." He ran a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of paint. "But I didn't kill her, Monsieur Poirot. I loved her, even if we fought." Poirot's expression remained serene, but his eyes missed nothing. The tremor in Edward's hands, the defensive edge in his voice. "Of course, monsieur. We seek only the truth. May we look about your studio?" Edward gestured vaguely, his reluctance palpable. "Go ahead. There's nothing here but paint and failure." Grayson began a methodical search, checking drawers and shelves, while Poirot moved with the precision of a cat, his gaze sweeping over every detail. He paused at a cluttered table where a sketchbook lay open, its pages filled with intricate drawings. One caught his eye, a detailed rendering of the chapel's lock, its mechanism sketched with mechanical precision, down to the tumblers and pins. Poirot's mustache twitched. "This, Monsieur Whitmore, is most interesting. You study locks as well as faces." Edward flushed, stepping forward. "It's just a sketch. I'm curious about how things work. Locks, machines, anything. It's an artist's habit, nothing more." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Curiosity, it can be innocent, or it can be preparation. We shall see." He slipped the sketchbook into his coat, ignoring Edward's protest. "This we will borrow, with your permission." Grayson, rummaging through a box of supplies, produced a small vial of lavender oil, its label faded but legible. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he took it, uncorking it to confirm the scent matched the veil's faint perfume. "Lavender, Monsieur Whitmore. Your mother did not use perfume, yet her veil carries this scent. How curious that you have such a vial." Edward's face paled further, his hands clenching. "It's for painting, mixing with pigments sometimes. I haven't used it in months. Anyone could have taken it." "Anyone?" Poirot's tone was gentle but piercing. "Yet it is here, in your studio. We will keep this in mind, we?" As they left the cottage, Grayson carried the sketchbook and vial, his brow furrowed. "That lock drawing suspicious, Monsieur Poirot." And the lavender, could he have been in the chapel, left that scent on the veil? Poirot's fingers tapped his walking stick, a rhythmic counterpoint to his thoughts. Possible, Inspector, but we must not conclude too quickly. The drawing shows knowledge, perhaps intent, but not proof. The lavender, it links to the veil. But Edward is not the only one with access to such a scent. We must visit the others, the priest, the suitor. Each holds a piece of this puzzle. They walked back through the village, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of amber and crimson. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together Edward's story. The son's burden, guilt over his father's death, resentment over his mother's refusal to sell the estate, was a potent motive. Yet the anguish in his voice, the raw grief in his eyes, suggested a man torn by loss, not driven to murder. The sketchbook, the lavender, these were threads, but were they leading to Edward, or merely tangling the web further? At the Black Swan Inn, Poirot paused, his gaze distant. "Inspector, we must learn more of the estate, its value, its debts. Edward's need for money, it is a shadow over him. And the lavender, it is a clue that does not yet fit. Tomorrow, we visit Father Benedict. The rectory, it may hold secrets as deep as this cottage." Grayson nodded, though his expression betrayed doubt. "You think Edward's hiding something, but not the murder?" Poirot's smile was serene. "I think, Inspector, that everyone hides something. The little gray cells, they see the shadows. But the light of truth requires more steps. We continue, and we observe." As night fell over St. Agnes, the chapel's spire vanished into the darkness, a silent witness to the secrets it held. Poirot sipped his tisane, his mind a whirl of possibilities, each clue a note in the symphony of Eleanor Whitmore's death. Chapter 5. The Priest's Confession. The dawn broke over St. Agnes with a hesitant light, as if the sun itself were reluctant to illuminate the village's sorrow. Hercule Poirot, ever punctual, stood outside the Black Swan Inn, his breath visible in the crisp morning air, his walking stick tapping a steady rhythm against the cobblestones. Inspector Grayson joined him, his face drawn from the weight of the investigation, his notebook bulging with hastily scrawled observations. The enigma of Eleanor Whitmore's murder, strangled in a locked chapel, her ebony veil torn, a hidden note bearing the cryptic plea, "Forgive me, R," had deepened with each revelation. The lavender scent, the missing key, Edward's sketches, all pointed to a calculated crime, yet the motive remained elusive. Today, Poirot's focus turned to Father Benedict, the priest whose quiet demeanor masked a flicker of unease that Poirot's keen eyes had not missed. "Inspector," Poirot said, his voice precise as he adjusted his hat, "the rectory awaits us. Father Benedict, he speaks of faith, of Eleanor's devotion, but his hands tremble, his eyes avoid. There is a secret there, and we must uncover it." Grayson nodded, pulling his coat tighter against the chill. "He's a man of the cloth, Monsieur Poirot, respected in the village. But I'll admit, his story about locking the chapel and going straight to his sermon feels too neat. And that lost key, 10 years gone, he says, but who's to say it's not in his keeping?" Poirot's mustache curved slightly, a sign of his mind at work. "Exactly, mon ami. The priest, he is close to Eleanor, perhaps too close. The note, the veil, the lock, all suggest intimacy, knowledge. We shall see what the rectory reveals." The rectory stood adjacent to the chapel, a modest stone building with ivy creeping up its walls, its windows glowing with the soft light of candles. The garden was tidy, a contrast to Edward's chaotic cottage with rows of late-blooming roses and a path swept clean of leaves. Father Benedict greeted them at the door, his black cassock immaculate, his face pale but composed. His deep-set eyes, however, held a shadow of fatigue, and his hands, clasped before him, betrayed a faint tremor as he ushered them inside. "Welcome, Monsieur Poirot, Inspector," he said, his voice low and measured, as if delivering a sermon. "I expected your visit. Eleanor's death is a wound to us all. How may I assist you?" Poirot's smile was courteous but piercing. "Father Benedict, we seek to understand Madame Whitmore's final days. You saw her often, yes? She came to the chapel each evening, and you locked the door behind her. Tell me, what was her state of mind?" The priest gestured to a pair of worn armchairs in the rectory's parlor, where a fire crackled in a small hearth. The room was spare, adorned only with a crucifix and a bookshelf heavy with theological tomes. As they sat, Father Benedict's fingers toyed with a silver rosary, its beads clicking softly. "Eleanor was devout," he began, "but troubled. These past months she spoke of a burden, a sin she could not name. I urged her to confess, to find peace, but she said it was not yet time. She prayed fervently, as if seeking forgiveness from God himself." Poirot leaned forward, his green eyes fixed on the priest's face. "A sin, you say? And yet she did not confide in you, her spiritual guide? This is curious, non? Did she speak of anyone? Edward? Sir Reginald? Perhaps another?" Father Benedict's gaze dropped to the rosary, his fingers pausing. "She mentioned Edward, of course. Her love for him was fierce, though they clashed over the estate. She spoke of Sir Reginald's proposals, how they wearied her. But no one else, not by name. She was private, guarded, even with me." Poirot's tone remained gentle, but his words were sharp. "And you, Father, where were you after locking the chapel door that night? You say you were here, preparing your sermon, alone. No one saw you?" The priest's eyes flickered, a brief crack in his composure. "No one, Monsieur Poirot. The rectory is my sanctuary. I was here until midnight, writing by lamplight. My work is solitary, as is my calling." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "Bon. And this key, the third key to the chapel, lost years ago. Tell me more. Could it have been taken by someone close to you, someone who knew its value?" Father Benedict's hands stilled, the rosary slipping into his lap. "It was kept in a drawer here, in the rectory, until the fete 10 years ago. We searched, but it was gone. I had the lock inspected afterward. It was secure, untainted. I cannot say who took it, or if it was merely misplaced." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Misplaced or stolen with purpose? We shall see. May we look about, Father? Your rectory, it may hold answers you do not yet see." The priest hesitated, then nodded, his face a mask of reluctant acquiescence. "As you wish. I have nothing to hide." Grayson began a careful search, his large hands moving through drawers and shelves with the precision of experience. Poirot, meanwhile, prowled the parlor with the grace of a cat, his eyes darting from the crucifix to the desk, where a stack of papers caught his attention. Among them, tucked beneath a sermon draft, was a letter in Eleanor's hand, its ink fresh and its tone urgent. "Father, keep my secret safe. I cannot bear its weight alone, but I am not ready to speak." A.W. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he held the letter aloft. "This, Father Benedict, what is this secret Madame Whitmore entrusted to you?" The priest's face paled, his hands rising as if to ward off the question. "It was private, Monsieur Poirot, a matter of her soul. She asked me to keep it in confidence, and I honored her wish. It has no bearing on her death." Poirot's smile was serene, but unrelenting. "No bearing, you say? Yet she is dead, and secrets, they are like shadows. They follow the guilty and the innocent alike. What was this secret, Father?" Father Benedict's voice dropped to a whisper, his eyes fixed on the fire. She spoke of a decision, a sacrifice for Edward's sake. She had given much to the chapel, money, time, devotion, more than she could afford. I urged her to sell the estate, to ease her burdens, but she refused, said it was her husband's legacy. That is all I know. Poirot folded the letter carefully, slipping it into his pocket. "Merci, Father. This letter we will keep for now. It speaks, even if you do not." Grayson, searching a cupboard, paused at a small wooden box, its lid carved with a cross. Inside, nestled among prayer cards, was a vial of lavender oil, identical to the one found in Edward's studio. Poirot's eyebrows rose as he uncorked it, the scent matching the veil's faint perfume. "Lavender, again?" he said softly. "You use this, Father, in your rituals?" Father Benedict shook his head, his expression startled. "No, never. It must be old, left by a predecessor. I don't use oils in the chapel, only wax and incense." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "Yet it is here, and the veil carries its scent. Curious, none?" He handed the vial to Grayson, who bagged it with a frown. As they left the rectory, the chapel's spire loomed through the morning mist, a silent sentinel. Grayson clutched the letter and vial, his voice low. "That letter, Monsieur Poirot. It's damning, and the lavender again. Do you think the priest was in the chapel, despite his story?" Poirot's fingers tapped his walking stick, his mind a whirl of connections. "The letter suggests Eleanor trusted him with something grave, perhaps financial ruin. The lavender, it links him to the veil, but so too does it link Edward. We must not assume, Inspector. The priest's secret, it is a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole. The estate, the money, these are motives that burn in more than one heart." They returned to the inn, where Poirot spread his notebook on the table, adding the letter's details to his meticulous notes. The village was waking, its whispers growing louder, and Poirot sensed the truth drawing closer. "Tomorrow we visit Sir Reginald," he said. "The baronet, his pride, his rejection, they too must be tested. The little gray cells, they see the pattern forming, but one thread remains out of reach." As the fire crackled in the inn's hearth, Poirot sipped his tisane, his eyes distant. Father Benedict's trembling hands, Eleanor's secret, the lavender scent, these were clues to a crime woven with care. The chapel's locked door was no longer the only barrier, the secrets of Saint. Agnes were locked tighter still, but Hercule Poirot would find the key. Chapter 6. The Suitor's Pride. The morning sun climbed higher over St. Agnes, its rays struggling to pierce the persistent mist that cloaked the village in a shroud of mystery. Hercule Poirot, impeccable in his tailored coat and polished shoes, stood outside the Black Swan Inn, his walking stick poised like a conductor's baton. Beside him, Inspector Grayson adjusted his scarf, his face etched with the dogged determination of a man wrestling with an intractable puzzle. The murder of Eleanor Whitmore, strangled in a locked chapel, her ebony veil torn, a cryptic note hidden within, had woven a web of clues. The lavender scent, a missing key, Edward's sketches, Father Benedict's guarded secret. Now Poirot's attention turned to Sir Reginald Crane, the baronet whose persistent courtship of Eleanor had ended in rejection. "Inspector," Poirot said, his voice as precise as a watch's tick. "This suitor, his pride is a fortress, but even fortresses have cracks. We shall find them at his manor." Grayson nodded, his boots scuffing the cobblestones as they began their walk. "Sir Reginald's a powerful man, Monsieur Poirot. Wealthy, respected, but touchy about his honor. If Eleanor's refusals stung him, he's not the sort to admit it. And that sighting by the river. It's flimsy, but it puts him near the chapel." Poirot's green eyes glinted, his mustache twitching with anticipation. "Flimsy, yes, but revealing. A man of pride does not walk by rivers at dusk without purpose. We must observe him closely, his words, his gestures. The little gray cells, they sense a wound beneath his charm." Crane Manor stood atop a gentle hill overlooking St. Agnes, its red brick facade and manicured lawns a testament to Sir Reginald's wealth. The wrought-iron gates gleamed, and the gravel drive crunched underfoot as Poirot and Grayson approached. A butler, stiff as a statue, ushered them into a grand hall adorned with hunting trophies and portraits of stern-faced ancestors. Sir Reginald awaited them in his study, a room of polished oak and leather-bound books, where a fire roared despite the mild day. He rose from a high-backed chair, his silver hair catching the light, his smile as polished as the crystal decanter on his desk. "Monsieur Poirot, Inspector Grayson," he said, his voice rich with practiced warmth. "A grim business, this. Eleanor was a fine woman, far too fine for this village. How can I assist you?" Poirot's bow was courteous, but his eyes were sharp as they studied the baronet. "Sir Reginald, we seek to understand Madame Whitmore's final days. You admired her, yes? Yet she declined your proposals. This must have been disappointing?" Sir Reginald's laugh was hearty, but it carried a brittle edge. "Disappointing? I suppose you could say that. Eleanor was stubborn, clinging to her late husband's memory like a nun to her vows. I offered her a life of comfort, security, but she preferred her widow's weeds and that infernal veil." He gestured to a decanter. "Brandy, gentlemen?" Poirot declined with a wave of his hand, his gaze never leaving Sir Reginald's face. "Non, merci. Tell me, monsieur, where were you on the evening of her death? You were seen near the river, close to the chapel path." The baronet's smile tightened, his fingers drumming lightly on the desk. "A walk, as I told the inspector. The river's a pleasant spot, clears the mind. I was nowhere near the chapel itself. Ask young Tom, the gardener's boy, who saw me." Poirot's head tilted, his expression serene but probing. "The river, it is but a stone's throw from the chapel, no? And your coat? It was dry, despite the damp grass. Curious, for a man who claims a riverside stroll." Sir Reginald's eyes narrowed, a flicker of irritation breaking his composure. "You're a sharp one, Monsieur Poirot. The grass was dry where I walked, that's all. I had no reason to harm Eleanor. I admired her, even if she didn't return the sentiment." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Admiration. It can curdle into resentment, monsieur. A man of your standing, rejected repeatedly. It wounds the pride, does it not?" The baronet leaned back, his fingers steepled. "I'm not a man to beg, if that's what you mean. Eleanor made her choice, and I respected it. If you're looking for a killer, try her son. Edward's always been desperate for money, skulking about with his paints and debts." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. We investigate all possibilities, Sir Reginald. May we see your study, your papers? The smallest detail may illuminate this tragedy." Sir Reginald hesitated, his jaw tightening, then gestured expansively. "Be my guest. I've nothing to hide." Grayson began a methodical search, his hands moving through shelves and drawers with practiced care. Poirot, meanwhile, glided about the room, his eyes darting from a silver hunting horn to a locked mahogany drawer beneath the desk. "This drawer, Sir Reginald," he said, his tone mild. "It is locked. What does it contain?" The baronet's smile returned, but it was strained. "Personal papers, nothing more. Letters, accounts, private matters." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Private, yet perhaps relevant. Inspector, a warrant, if you please, to open this drawer." Grayson glanced at Sir Reginald, who shrugged with forced nonchalance. "No need for warrants. I'll open it." He produced a small key from his waistcoat, unlocking the drawer with a click. Inside were neatly stacked letters, a ledger, and a folded receipt from a London jeweler, dated 6 months prior. Poirot unfolded it, his eyes scanning the description. "Custom silver key, engraved with monogram E.W. Poirot's mustache twitched." "A key, Sir Reginald, engraved with Madame Whitmore's initials. A gift, perhaps." The baronet's face flushed, but his voice remained steady. "A pendant, meant as a token of affection. She returned it, said it was too extravagant. I kept the receipt out of habit." Poirot's smile was serene but piercing. A pendant or a key to the chapel? The scratches on the lock, they suggest a duplicate. This receipt, it is most interesting. Sir Reginald's laugh was sharp. "You're reaching, Monsieur Poirot. I've no need to sneak into chapels like a common thief. That key was a trinket, nothing more." Poirot folded the receipt, handing it to Grayson. "We will keep this, monsieur, for further study. Merci for your cooperation." As they left the manor, Grayson clutched the receipt, his brow furrowed. "A custom key, Monsieur Poirot. If it's a duplicate of the chapel key, it's damning. And his story about the river walk, it doesn't hold up if his coat was dry." Poirot's fingers tapped his walking stick, his mind a whirl of connections. "The key. It is a clue, but not yet proof. Sir Reginald's pride, it is wounded, and a wounded man is dangerous. Yet, the note. Forgive me, R. It suggests Eleanor felt guilt toward him. Why? We must learn more of their relationship, of what passed between them." They returned to the inn as dusk settled over St. Agnes, the village's lights flickering like stars in the mist. Poirot spread his notebook on the table, adding the receipt to his growing catalogue of evidence. The lavender scent, Edward's sketches, Father Benedict's letter, and now Sir Reginald's key. Each was a thread in a tapestry of deceit. "Tomorrow," Poirot said, "we walk the village, listen to its whispers. The people of St. Agnes, they see more than they say. The truth, it hides in their glances, their silences." Grayson nodded, though his eyes betrayed doubt. "You think Sir Reginald's our man? That key could unlock the whole case." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "I think, Inspector, that pride is a motive as old as time. But we must not rush. The little gray cells, they see the pattern forming, but one piece remains missing. We continue, and we observe." As the fire crackled in the inn's hearth, Poirot sipped his tisane, his gaze distant. Sir Reginald's polished charm, his locked drawer, the custom key. These were clues to a man who planned, perhaps too carefully. The chapel's locked door was no longer the only mystery. Sir Reginald's heart held secrets of its own, and Hercule Poirot was determined to unlock them. Chapter 7. The Village Whispers. The mist over St. Agnes had lifted by mid-morning, revealing a village bathed in the pale gold of an autumn sun. Hercule Poirot, his coat immaculate and his walking stick gleaming, strolled along the cobblestone lanes with Inspector Grayson at his side. The air carried the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, but Poirot's mind was fixed on the puzzle of Eleanor Whitmore's murder. A locked chapel, a torn veil with its hidden note, the elusive lavender scent, and the mounting clues pointing to Edward's desperation, Father Benedict's secret, and Sir Reginald's wounded pride. Each suspect was a thread in a tapestry of deceit, yet the pattern remained incomplete. Today, Poirot sought the village's whispers, the unguarded truths that lingered in gossip and sidelong glances. "Inspector," he said, his voice crisp, "the people of St. Agnes, they are the eyes of this mystery. They see what the suspects conceal. We must listen, and the little gray cells will find the truth." Grayson, his notebook tucked under his arm, nodded wearily. "The villagers are talking, all right. Half of them think Edward's a wastrel who killed his mother for money. The other half swear Father Benedict's too holy to be involved. As for Sir Reginald, they're split. Some say he's too proud to murder. Others reckon he's just the sort to snap." Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile playing beneath it. "Gossip, it is like a river, muddy, but carrying fragments of truth. We shall sift through it, mon ami, and find the gold." Their first stop was the village post office, a cramped shop where the air smelled of ink and wax. Mrs. Langley, the postmistress, a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, greeted them with a knowing nod. Her counter was cluttered with letters and parcels, but her attention was wholly on Poirot, as if sensing his purpose. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, wiping her hands on her apron, "I heard you're untangling poor Eleanor's murder. Terrible business. She was a lady, that one, always polite when she posted her letters." Poirot's smile was disarming. "Madame Langley, you see much in this village, yes? The comings and goings, the secrets in envelopes. Tell me, what did you see of Eleanor Whitmore and those around her?" Mrs. Langley leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Eleanor, she kept to herself, mostly, but she'd post letters to her solicitor in London, about the estate, I reckon. Edward, now, he's a moody one. I saw him arguing with her outside the chapel a week back, shouting about money. Red in the face, he was, and she just stood there, calm as stone, clutching that veil." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "An argument, you say? And what of Father Benedict or Sir Reginald? Were they seen near the chapel that evening?" The postmistress pursed her lips, savoring her role as informant. "Father Benedict, he's always about the chapel, locking up after Eleanor's prayers. But I saw him later that night, past 10, walking by the yews. Looked troubled, not like his usual calm self. As for Sir Reginald, Tom the gardener's boy swears he saw him by the river, but I'll tell you something odd. His coat was dry as a bone when he passed my window later. No mud, no damp, and that riverbank's a mire this time of year." Poirot's fingers tapped his walking stick, his mind cataloguing her words. "Most interesting, madam. And this veil of Eleanor's, did she ever speak of it, or of anything unusual?" Mrs. Langley shook her head. "Not a word, but she wore it like a second skin. Once I saw her adjust it, outside, and I swear I caught a whiff of lavender. Odd, since she wasn't one for scents." Poirot thanked her, his expression serene, but his mind racing. The lavender again, linking the veil to Edward's studio and Father Benedict's rectory. And Sir Reginald's dry coat, an alibi crumbling under scrutiny. They moved on to the village green, where the innkeeper, Mr. Dobbs, was sweeping his doorstep. A burly man with a ruddy face, he paused to offer a grim nod. "Morning, Inspector, Monsieur Poirot. St. Agnes ain't been the same since Eleanor's death. She was the heart of this place." Poirot's tone was gentle but probing. "Monsieur Dobbs, you hear much in your inn. The talk of patrons, their troubles. What do they say of Eleanor's son, her priest, her suitor?" Dobbs leaned on his broom, his eyes narrowing. "Edward's a sore subject. Folks say he's talented but reckless, always in debt. He came in here a month ago, drunk, ranting about his mother refusing to sell the estate. Said it was his future she was holding hostage. Father Benedict now, he's a saint to most, but some whisper he was too close to Eleanor, always lingering after her prayers. And Sir Reginald, well, he's a charmer, but there's talk he took Eleanor's rejections hard. Old Mrs. Carter saw him storm out of Eleanor's cottage once, face like thunder." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And the evening of the murder, did you see any of them?" Dobbs scratched his chin. "I saw Edward head toward his cottage at dusk, paint on his hands. Father Benedict was at the chapel earlier, locking up, but I didn't see him after. Sir Reginald, though, he passed by here after his so-called river walk, looking smug as you please, not a speck of dirt on him, which struck me odd." Poirot nodded, his mind weaving the threads together. "Merci, Monsieur Dobbs. Your observations, they are most valuable." Their final stop was the gardener's shed, where young Tom, a lanky lad of 16, was polishing tools. His eyes widened at the sight of Poirot and Grayson, but he answered readily when questioned. "I saw Sir Reginald by the river, sir, near dusk. He was pacing, not walking, like he was waiting for someone. Didn't look wet or muddy, though the bank's a mess." "And Father Benedict?" Poirot asked. "Or Edward Whitmore?" Tom hesitated, his hands fidgeting. "I saw Father Benedict by the yews, late, maybe 10. He was just standing there, head bowed like he was praying. Didn't see Edward, but his cottage light was on when I passed by." Poirot thanked the boy, his mind churning as they returned to the chapel. The village's whispers painted a vivid picture. Edward's temper, Father Benedict's late-night vigils, Sir Reginald's pristine coat. Each contradicted their alibis in subtle ways, and the lavender scent persisted as a ghostly link. Poirot paused at the chapel door, his magnifying glass tracing the scratches around the lock once more. "Inspector," he said, "we must reconstruct the crime." Eleanor entered at dusk, locked the door. The killer, with a key, perhaps the lost one, perhaps a duplicate, entered later. They struggled, the veil tore, revealing the note. But why tear it? To find the note, or to destroy its meaning? Grayson frowned, his notebook open. "The note? Forgive me, R. It points to Sir Reginald, doesn't it? And that jeweler's receipt for a key with her initials." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "It points, yes, but a clue is not a conclusion. The lavender, it is everywhere. Edward's studio, Father Benedict's rectory, now the veil. We must test it, Inspector. Send the vial from Edward's cottage and the one from the rectory to a chemist. Is it the same lavender? And the estate. Check Eleanor's solicitor. Her refusal to sell, it is a motive that burns bright." As they walked back to the inn, the village settled into the quiet of midday, its whispers fading into the rustle of leaves. Poirot's notebook grew heavier with notes. Edward's argument, Father Benedict's vigil, Sir Reginald's dry coat. Lavender links all, but who placed it? The chapel's spire loomed behind them, a silent witness to the truth that lay just out of reach. "Tomorrow," Poirot said, "we confront the suspects again." The threads, they tighten, and the little gray cells, they see the pattern forming. At the inn, Poirot sipped his tisane, his eyes distant. The village had spoken, its whispers a chorus of suspicion. The killer was among them, hidden in plain sight, and Hercule Poirot was closer than ever to unmasking them. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. The afternoon sun hung low over St. Agnes, its light casting long shadows across the ancient chapel, where the air seemed to hold its breath. Hercule Poirot, his coat pristine despite the day's exertions, stood before the heavy oak door, his walking stick planted firmly in the earth. Beside him, Inspector Grayson clutched a folder of evidence, his face a map of determination and fatigue. The investigation into Eleanor Whitmore's murder had woven a complex web. A locked chapel, a torn veil with its hidden note, the persistent lavender scent, Edward's sketches, Father Benedict's secret letter, and Sir Reginald's jeweler's receipt for a custom key. The village's whispers had tightened the threads, pointing to motives of greed, duty, and wounded pride. Now Poirot had summoned the three suspects, Edward Whitmore, Father Benedict, and Sir Reginald Crane, to the chapel for a confrontation. "Inspector," he said, his voice as sharp as a blade. "The truth, it hides no longer. The little gray cells, they have seen the pattern, and today we unravel it." Grayson shifted, his eyes scanning the chapel's stone facade. "You're certain, Monsieur Poirot? The evidence, it points in circles. Edward's debts, the priest's secret, Sir Reginald's key, they all fit, yet none." Du Poirot's mustache curved in a serene smile. "Circles, yes, but they converge. The chapel, it is the stage, and we, the audience, will see the final act. Let us enter." Inside, the chapel was cool and dim, the stained glass casting fractured colors across the stone floor. The chalk outline of Eleanor's body lingered near the altar, a silent accusation. Poirot had arranged 3 chairs in a semicircle, facing a small table where the torn veil, the hidden note, and the jeweler's receipt lay like relics of a crime. The suspects arrived one by one, their faces a study in contrasts. Edward's pale and drawn, his paint-stained fingers twitching. Father Benedict's calm but shadowed, his rosary beads clicking softly. Sir Reginald's polished but tense, his gray eyes hard as flint. They sat, the air thick with anticipation, as Poirot took his place before them, his presence commanding despite his diminutive stature. "Messieurs," he began, his voice clear and deliberate, "we are here to uncover the truth of Eleanor Whitmore's murder. She was strangled in this locked chapel, her ebony veil torn, a note hidden within pleading, 'Forgive me, R.' The door was locked, the key in her pocket, yet someone entered, killed, and left. An impossible crime, you think? No, for Hercule Poirot, nothing is impossible." Edward shifted, his voice hoarse. "Why drag us here? I loved my mother. I'd never hurt her." Father Benedict's hands stilled, his eyes meeting Poirot's. "This is a sacred place, Monsieur Poirot. I pray you find justice for Eleanor." Sir Reginald leaned back, his smile thin. "A theatrical display, Monsieur Poirot. I've nothing to fear. Get on with it." Poirot's eyes gleamed, his fingers steepled. "Very well. Let us begin with the facts. Eleanor entered this chapel at dusk, locking the door with her key. The killer, with a duplicate key, entered later, strangled her, and tore the veil, revealing the note. The lavender scent on the veil. It links to vials found in Edward's studio and Father Benedict's rectory. The scratches on the lock suggest tampering. The note, it points to R. But who? Let us examine each of you. He turned to Edward, his gaze piercing. Monsieur Whitmore, your mother refused to sell the estate, a fortune that could have freed you from debt. Your sketches of the chapel lock show knowledge, perhaps intent. The lavender in your studio, it matches the veil's scent. You argued with her, yes? About money? Edward's face flushed, his hands clenching. Yes, we argued, but I didn't kill her. Those sketches, they're just studies. The lavender's for painting, not murder. I loved her, even if she didn't understand me. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. Your grief, it is real, but your need for money, it is a shadow. Yet the little gray cells, they see no murder in your heart. You are not our killer. Edward exhaled, his shoulders sagging, but Poirot's attention shifted to Father Benedict. Mon père, you were close to Eleanor. She entrusted you with a secret, a letter urging you to keep it safe. She gave much to this chapel, draining her wealth, yet refused to sell the estate. You were seen by the Yews late that night, not writing your sermon. The lavender in your rectory, it too matches the veil. Did you enter the chapel, perhaps to confront her? The priest's face paled, his rosary beads slipping through his fingers. I kept her confidence, Monsieur Poirot. Her secret was her sacrifice, giving to the church beyond her means. I urged her to sell, to save herself, but she refused. I was by the Yews, yes, praying for her soul. I did not enter the chapel after locking it. Poirot's smile was gentle but unrelenting. Your duty, it is admirable, but your secret, it is not the whole truth. The lavender, the late-night vigil, these suggest concern, not guilt. You, too, are not the killer. Father Benedict bowed his head, relief mingling with sorrow, as Poirot turned to Sir Reginald, whose smile had faded, his eyes now wary. Sir Reginald, you admired Eleanor, yet she rejected you repeatedly. Your pride, it is a fortress, but a wounded one. The jeweler's receipt for a custom key, engraved with E.W., suggests more than a pendant. Your coat, dry despite a riverside walk, betrays your alibi. The note, forgive me, R. It is for you, is it not? Sir Reginald's laugh was sharp, but it lacked conviction. Your spinning tales, Monsieur Poirot. That key was a gift, returned by Eleanor. The note could mean anything. R isn't proof. I was by the river, not here. Poirot's voice grew softer, more dangerous. Non, monsieur, you planned this. The scratches on the lock, they match a duplicate key, made from the lost third key, or copied from Eleanor's. You entered, enraged by her final rejection, and strangled her with a scarf, tearing the veil in her struggle. The note, her plea for forgiveness, was for spurning you. You locked the door, leaving her key, believing your crime perfect. Sir Reginald's face darkened, his hands gripping the chair. Preposterous. You've no proof, only guesses. Poirot gestured to Grayson, who produced a small metal box. Inspector, the warrant you obtained this morning shows Sir Reginald what was found in his manor, hidden in a locked safe. Grayson opened the box, revealing a silver key, its head engraved with E.W. Poirot, continued, his voice relentless. This key, it fits the chapel lock. We tested it this morning. The lavender scent, it clings to your scarf, found in your study. The village saw you dry and smug, not wet from a river walk. You killed Eleanor Whitmore. Sir Reginald, because her rejection was a wound your pride could not bear. The baronet's composure cracked, his voice rising. She humiliated me. I offered her everything, wealth, status, and she chose a dead man's memory over me. I went to reason with her, to make her see, but she laughed, said I'd never understand. I lost control, just for a moment. The chapel fell silent, the weight of his confession settling like dust. Grayson stepped forward, handcuffs ready. "Sir Reginald Crane, you're under arrest for the murder of Eleanor Whitmore." Poirot's eyes were somber, his voice soft. "Pride, monsieur. It is a dangerous master. You thought your plan flawless, but the little gray cells, they see all." As Grayson led Sir Reginald away, Edward and Father Benedict remained, their faces a mix of shock and relief. Poirot gathered the veil and note, his task complete, but his heart heavy. "The truth," he said quietly, "it is a light that burns, but it must shine." The chapel door closed behind them, its lock no longer a mystery, but the echoes of Eleanor's death lingered in the silence of St. Agnes. Chapter 9. The Confession. The twilight over St. Agnes draped the village in a somber veil, as if the sky itself mourned Eleanor Whitmore's fate. Inside the chapel, the air was heavy with the aftershock of Sir Reginald Crane's confession, his words still echoing off the ancient stone walls. Hercule Poirot stood near the altar, his figure small but commanding, his green eyes reflecting the dim glow of the stained glass. Inspector Grayson, his face a mixture of triumph and exhaustion, secured the handcuffs on Sir Reginald, whose polished demeanor had crumbled into a mask of defiance and regret. Edward Whitmore and Father Benedict remained seated, their expressions a tableau of relief and sorrow, the weight of truth settling upon them. The torn veil, the hidden note, the lavender scent, all had led to this moment, yet Poirot's mind lingered on the human cost of the crime. "Inspector," he said, his voice soft but clear, "the case is solved, but the heart of it, it bleeds still. Let us hear Sir Reginald's full account, for the truth, it must be complete." Grayson nodded, guiding Sir Reginald to a pew, where the baronet sat heavily, his silver hair disheveled, his gray eyes fixed on the floor. Edward's hands trembled, his paint-stained fingers clutching the edge of his chair, while Father Benedict's rosary beads clicked softly, a prayer unspoken. Poirot faced Sir Reginald, his demeanor calm but unrelenting, like a judge delivering a verdict. "Monsieur Crane," he began, "you have admitted to the murder of Eleanor Whitmore, but the why, the how, these we must understand. Speak, and let the little gray cells confirm the pattern they have seen." Sir Reginald's laugh was bitter, a hollow sound in the sacred space. "You're a devil, Poirot, with your questions and your eyes that see too much. Yes, I killed her. I didn't plan to, not at first, but she drove me to it." His voice cracked, and he ran a hand over his face, as if to wipe away the shame. Eleanor was extraordinary, beautiful, proud, unyielding. I offered her everything, a life at the manor, wealth, position, but she refused me again and again, clinging to that wretched veil and her dead husband's memory. Poirot's gaze was piercing. "And this rejection, it wounded your pride, oui? Enough to make a key, to enter this chapel, to end her life?" Sir Reginald's jaw tightened, his eyes flashing with a mix of anger and pain. "It wasn't just pride. I loved her, in my way. 6 months ago, I had a key made, a duplicate of the chapel's, based on the lost one I found at the fete years ago. I kept it, thinking I'd use it to meet her privately, to persuade her. I gave her a pendant, too, with her initials, hoping she'd see my devotion. She sent it back, called it presumptuous. He paused, his voice dropping. That night, I went to the chapel. I knew her habits, her evening prayers. I used the key, entered after she locked the door. I begged her to reconsider, to choose me. She laughed, not cruelly, but with pity. Said I'd never understand her heart. Poirot tilted his head, his voice soft but insistent. And this pity, it was too much for you, no? You acted in rage. Sir Reginald nodded, his hands clenching. I lost control. I grabbed her scarf. My scarf, one I'd left at her cottage once, and wrapped it around her throat. She fought, clutched at that veil, and it tore. I didn't mean to kill her. Not really, but it was done. I saw the note fall from the veil that, "Forgive me, R." She'd written it, maybe feeling guilty for rejecting me, but it didn't matter. I locked the door, left her key in her pocket, and walked away, thinking no one would suspect. Edward's voice broke the silence, raw with anguish. You monster! She was my mother! How could you? Sir Reginald's eyes met Edward's, unrepentant. You'd know, boy, what it's like to want something she wouldn't give. You begged her to sell that estate, didn't you, for your precious paints and dreams? Edward lunged forward, but Grayson restrained him, his voice firm. Enough, Edward. He's confessed. Let the law handle it. Father Benedict, silent until now, spoke, his voice trembling. Eleanor was a woman of faith, Sir Reginald. She trusted this chapel, trusted God. You defiled both. Poirot raised a hand, his tone commanding attention. The lavender, Sir Reginald. Explain it. The veil carried its scent, as did your scarf, found in your study, yet Eleanor used no perfume. Sir Reginald shrugged, his defiance fading. I keep lavender oil in my study, for my linens. The scarf must have picked it up. I didn't notice it on her veil, but maybe it transferred during the struggle. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind testing the explanation. The lavender linked Edward's studio, Father Benedict's rectory, and now Sir Reginald's scarf. A coincidence or a deliberate misdirection? He filed the thought away, turning to Grayson. The scarf? Inspector, it was tested? Grayson nodded. The chemist confirmed it. Fibers from Sir Reginald's scarf match those on Eleanor's throat, and the lavender scent is identical to the veil's. Poirot's mustache twitched, satisfied but cautious. Bon, the key, the scarf, the note, all align. Yet the heart of this crime, it is not just method, but motive. Sir Reginald, you say you loved her, yet your love was a cage, demanding her surrender. When she refused, your pride became your master. Sir Reginald's shoulders slumped, his voice barely audible. I didn't want her dead. I wanted her to choose me, but she wouldn't, and I couldn't bear it. Poirot turned to Edward and Father Benedict, his expression softening. Messieurs, this tragedy, it is done. The note, "Forgive me, R," was Eleanor's apology for rejecting Sir Reginald, a kindness he did not deserve. Her death, it was not your fault, though you carry her loss. Edward's eyes were wet, his voice choked. She loved that estate, Father's memory. I should have understood. Father Benedict clutched his rosary, his face serene but pained. I failed her, Monsieur Poirot. I should have seen her distress, helped her more. Poirot shook his head. No, you did what you could. The fault lies with Sir Reginald alone. Grayson led the baronet out, the handcuffs clinking as the chapel door closed behind them. Poirot lingered, gathering the veil and note, his task complete, but his heart heavy. The truth, he said to the empty chapel. It is a light that reveals, but it does not heal. That is for time, and for those left behind. Outside, the village was quiet, the mist returning as night approached. Poirot's work was done, but the echoes of Eleanor's life and death would linger in St. Agnes, a reminder that even love could turn to darkness. Chapter 10. The Aftermath. The dawn broke gently over St. Agnes, its light filtering through the mist to touch the rooftops with a hesitant glow. The village, so recently stirred by the tragedy of Eleanor Whitmore's murder, seemed to exhale, as if the revelation of Sir Reginald Crane's guilt had loosened a knot in its heart. Hercule Poirot stood outside the Black Swan Inn, his coat immaculate, his walking stick resting lightly in his gloved hand. The case was solved. The locked chapel, the torn veil, the hidden note, the lavender scent, all had led to the baronet's confession, a crime born of wounded pride. Yet Poirot's green eyes held a trace of melancholy, for the truth, though uncovered, left scars on those it touched. Beside him, Inspector Grayson adjusted his hat, his face weary but relieved, the weight of justice now settled. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice rough from a sleepless night, "you've done it again. Sir Reginald's locked up and the village can breathe easier, but I confess I'm still shaken by how close he came to getting away with it." Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile softening his features. "The little gray cells, Inspector, they do not permit such escapes. The truth, it is like a star. It may be hidden by clouds, but it shines still. Now we must speak with those left behind to ensure the wounds begin to heal." They made their way to the chapel, where Edward Whitmore and Father Benedict had agreed to meet them. The ancient stone building stood silent, its spire piercing the morning sky, no longer a place of mystery, but one of closure. Inside, the air was cool, scented with wax and memory, the chalk outline of Eleanor's body now erased, though its presence lingered in the minds of those who entered. Edward stood near the altar, his lean frame hunched, his paint-stained hands clasped tightly. Father Benedict knelt in a pew, his rosary beads still, his face lifted toward the stained glass, as if seeking solace. They rose as Poirot and Grayson approached, their figure, their expressions a mix of gratitude and grief. "Monsieur Whitmore, Father Benedict," Poirot began, his voice calm but resonant, "my deepest condolences for your loss. The truth of Madame Whitmore's death has been found, and justice will be served. But I come to you now to offer clarity, to ensure her memory is honored." Edward's eyes were red-rimmed, his voice low. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I still can't believe she's gone, or that Sir Reginald could do such a thing. She loved this chapel, this village. What happens now?" Father Benedict stood, his cassock rustling softly, his deep-set eyes heavy with sorrow. "Eleanor was our light, Monsieur Poirot. Her death leaves a void, but your work has given us a path to peace. I only wish I'd seen her pain, helped her more." Poirot gestured to the pews, inviting them to sit. "Messieurs, let us speak of Eleanor, of her heart, the note in her veil. Forgive me, R. It was her apology to Sir Reginald, a kindness to soften her rejection. She wrote it, perhaps, knowing his pride was fragile, hoping to ease his hurt. But it could not prevent his rage. Her love for you, Edward, for this chapel, Father, was her strength, even as it drained her." Edward's hands tightened, his voice breaking. "She wouldn't sell the estate, Father's legacy. I pushed her too hard, didn't I? If I'd let it go, maybe she'd still be here." Poirot shook his head, his tone gentle but firm. "Non, Monsieur Whitmore. The fault is not yours. Eleanor's choice to keep the estate was her vow to your father, a burden she bore willingly. Your love for her, it was returned, even in your struggles. You must carry her memory, not her guilt." He turned to Father Benedict. "And you, mon père, you gave her solace in this chapel. Her secret, her donations that strained her wealth, was her gift to God and this village. You could not have foreseen Sir Reginald's act. Her faith in you was not misplaced." Father Benedict's fingers brushed his rosary, his voice soft. "I'll pray for her soul, Monsieur Poirot. This chapel will be her memorial, a place of light." Poirot produced the torn veil, now carefully folded, and handed it to Edward. "This belongs with you, her son. Keep it, not as a weight, but as a reminder of her love." Edward took it, his fingers tracing the monogram E.W., tears falling silently. "I'll keep the estate for her. I'll make it right, paint something worthy of her." Poirot nodded, his eyes warm. "You will, monsieur. And you, Father Benedict, will guide this village to heal, as she would have wished." Grayson, standing quietly, added, "The evidence is solid. Key, scarf, fibers, confession. Sir Reginald's trial will be swift. St. Agnes will move forward, thanks to you, Monsieur Poirot." Poirot's smile was somber. "Justice is served, but the heart heals slowly." The lavender, the key, the note, they were threads of a tapestry woven by human frailty. Hercule Poirot only pulls the threads to reveal the truth. As they left the chapel, the village stirred with life, children playing, shopkeepers opening their doors. Edward vowed to honor his mother by preserving the estate, perhaps turning it into a gallery for his art, a tribute to her spirit. Father Benedict promised a special mass for Eleanor to unite the village in her memory. Poirot and Grayson returned to the inn, where Poirot's tisane awaited, now cold but untouched, his mind still lingering on the case. "The human heart," he murmured, gazing at the chapel's spire through the inn's window. "It is a mystery deeper than any locked room. We solve the crime, but the pain, it remains." Grayson nodded, his voice low. "You gave them closure, Monsieur Poirot. That's more than most get." Poirot sipped his tisane, his eyes distant. The chapel's silence would linger, but St. Agnes would mend, its people bound by Eleanor's legacy. The case was closed, but Hercule Poirot knew that some puzzles, the ones of love and loss, defied even the little gray cells.